let's get started. The clock is now 4 o'clock here in Denmark. I'm really looking forward to this session about migration. So yes, and I hope you are too. You're here on time. That is what matters. So let's just get started, if I can. So yes, my name is Daniel. I founded Figaf, and I've always wanted to figure out how we can improve the ways we're working, what goes on, what's the best way to deliver integration. So that's my focus.
Yeah, my name is Kishore. I have 21 years of experience in integration. Started with XI 3.0 also, like Daniel. I worked for a retail company in Denmark for close to 15 years. And then I came back to India 3 years ago now. And then working as a solution architect for Figaf, helping with migration as well as adding the.
Good. Yes. So there is right now 709 days to the end of support for SAP PI, which is something that causes some anxiety. When we talk about this, there is always the challenge with what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to wait another year and hope the problem goes away? Or are you actually going to make a plan? And hopefully by the end of this plan, you would be able to get a better understanding of what are the options. Michael, it was just Kishore freezing, right? So one of the things that I often get to ask is, what is your goal with the migration? And that is both when I talk with consultant service integrators, managers, say, hey, or with customers, and it seems like, oh, you're back, Kishore?
Oh, sorry, there was some network glitch.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we just continued. So yes, what is it that you want? Is it to get the cheapest option for your migration? Is it to get the fastest migration project, or what is actually your goal with this migration that you have? And how do you actually deal with this in a simple manner? Or is it that you want to get the solution that is easiest to maintain in the long run? And I hope you are looking and then obviously something about modernizing. Everybody would talk about, hey, you need to modernize the landscape. That is the best way to go. But as with all of this is going to be a balance between cost, between creating brand new integrations. And I would imagine that you are going to be somewhere in between with these landscapes or with this scenario. So one of the common thing I often get when I get a request from a service integrator is, hey, we have 150 interfaces. What is how long time does it take to migrate? And it's always, yes, do you know anything more about this? And generally, no, they have really limited knowledge. You have probably shared that they have 150 interfaces, maybe, plus minus. And then you go, okay, in Figaf, you can migrate an interface and probably test it, and we'll show a demo of this in 1 to 8 hours, depending on a lot of factors. But there is some cases where there's something's up that, and this is the part that you don't know in advance. So that could be company codes, that mapping different lookup systems, different something that or some general or great developer at some point in time figured out, hey, let's create this because this would solve a lot of our pains. And therefore it's been added, and that just creates a bit extra confusions and challenges. And that is what we see. So you need to figure out what is it that you want to achieve. Is it just the lowest price? Because we also hear that a lot of these things, when the companies come, yeah, the only thing they look for is the rates, what this is going to cost. and then all the other thing doesn't really matter. But I guess the methodology, the consistency, all these things, it's things that matters. And I don't know about you, but where are you, or what is actually the things that you are looking for when you're going through the migration? I would love to get your input on these things to just understand where you are on this roadmap. Yes. Okay. So the Figaf vision and what we wanted to achieve is, or well, I guess what we're progressed to. I guess it's difficult to start or state where you are, what's going on with some of these scenarios. But our focus is now the full development process on SAP Integration Suite, from developers to testers to architects to transport organizers to operations, even auditors would be the ones that's actually where this actually makes a lot of sense in this setup. So the more we can go into these things and more you can do in one application, the easier it becomes to manage. Hey, Laxman, great you could join. Hopefully, you will be able to create a good plan. And as I always say, it's easy to migrate one interface and move it into production, but it's somewhat much more difficult to really build this framework around it. How do you actually make sure everything works as you would expect it to do, with the setup and processes in place for it? Yeah, don't just ask for migration, ask for something that you can actually maintain. Get all the systems and frameworks in place that actually make it possible for you to transport and manage these this setup. Use as much standard as possible, and then obviously I would recommend that you get the Figaf help as a part of this, because it does help organize a few of these things. Kishore, are you back?
Yeah.
Okay. And just without video. Good.
Yeah. I'm just going through that.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Will you take this?
Yeah. So the one what Daniel mentioned, how you get accelerated in your migration journey using Figaf. That's first thing. It's a free tool. You want to start the process, so it's not like you have some premier or a free license separated, but whatever you get in the full paid license, that you can do with a limited number of objects which you can do for the migration. But all the features you can test without getting into any commitment, and then you can easily deploy it on the BTP. That's the best option we recommend. You can also do it as a standalone installation, or you can do it on a local PC also if you want to just try it. Okay, and then once you are fully explored, and then you are fully satisfied with the features and you want to go, then that is also an easy upgrade. You can go for the full version. So
just a commercial license that you need.
Yes. So you need to get that license, and then we will update your license in the license server, so it reflects the fully professional one. So just we don't want to push everything from us as a paid service, but whatever you have as a free option in the SAP tool, use it. But at the same time, this is not a solution for everything from the free version. So that's where Figaf will do this acceleration, act as an accelerator, as well as it is also helping you to manage your integration platform. So that is the greatest potential what we see in Figaf. So it's not just one thing tailored for where one thing suits for every customer, but it should be a tailored one with a detailed analysis. Next slide, please, Jerry. Yeah, so we have identified or worked with this 5 phases in your migration journey, where we broadly classify them and then try to go through the. So first step is obviously the preparation. So first of all, getting the landscape ready, setting the tool for the tool, as well as getting what you want to achieve from this. And then once you are done, once you are there and your systems are connected, then try to create actually understand your landscape, integration landscape which is existing. So that is mainly achieved by a concept called tagging in Figaf. So you can define your tagging rules for all the possible integration objects in your PIPO repository. That way you can make a mix and matches of things in the migration assessment, and then they will be specific to individual customers. So that is where you get the full information out of your integration landscape. And once that is there, get your assessment report and then try to understand your PI landscape. So once that is done, the next step is actually do a selected migration of scenarios as a pilot, and then try to test different patterns which are like try to find a unique possibilities and combinations of your landscape, and then try to test them. And then this input will be used for your future migration project, and also for the scoping and budgeting of the project. Once you're done with this, then the next step is obviously executing the project, and then that is like use the results what you have achieved from the pilot, and then try to do the best to achieve cost efficient as well as a quality migration solution, which will be possible with Figaf. And then that includes migration automation as well as testing, and then modifying your or adjusting your migrated iflows with our Groovy XSLT editor, and then finally test the iflows for production ready. So this is primarily the essential steps what you can see in the thing. And then of course the last part is the go live, and here DevOps tool comes very handy for you in terms of transporting the integration scenarios not only to the production but also to the development to testing landscape, as well as configurations, and then having the good governance as well as a better visibility of your integration landscape. And of course, you can also do documentation, monitoring of your integration, as well as alerting. So these are the 5 phases what we can see a customer will go through with Figaf, and then try to achieve the best possible results. Next slide, please, Dave.
So I think the pilot project is one of the key aspects to get a better understanding of how this migration works, and get this understanding. So how you're going to move this into production, how you're actually going to maintain that. And as Jochen pointed out here, it's difficult to know how you're building governance around these things. What's a big Groovy script? What's easy to maintain? What's not easy to maintain? All of these things is something that hopefully in the pilot project, the pilot migration, you get an understanding about how do we actually move these things? What is it, or move these iflows? And I think that's obviously a key. And then once you go into the migration and go live, it is obviously in waves. You should figure out the perfect size for your migrations, batches, and go live at a rate that, well, enables you to go live in less than 2 years.
Yeah, Daniel, you want to take this slide?
Yes. So the Figaf tool we have 2 components into it, and they support this journey that we just proposed here. So we do have the migration. This is one time that you need to perform this, where we can do the assessment. We can migrate, we can manage all of this migration. And I think it's a lot of these is actually really key, that simplifies your journey. Obviously, you want to be able to test it. And then the other part is the part about being able to maintain this integration once you go live with it. And I think it's really, it's important thing also to think about, not just how do we migrate to our dev environment, but how do we actually maintain this all the way through.
Yeah. So as I mentioned in the Figaf assessment, the primary thing is to create the tagging rules. And this is tailored to the specific customer because, for example, one customer have used not just graphical mappings, but also Java mappings or XSLT. And we cannot assume that this is present in every customer. So that is why tagging rules tailored to the customer needs is actually the most critical point in generating the assessment report. And once this rules are
so one of the reasons why we created this was we were doing a project with a customer, and then we found out, okay, so this customer have a file adapter or SFTP adapter with archive enabled, and that was something that caused some problems at that point in time for the migration. And we needed to consider, how do we actually make this? And we thought, okay, we could actually create this as a rule that we set it, but it should be much more configurable for you as a user, and as a consulting company, that you can actually create your own rules. So we are providing some of our own rules. One of them is one of these challenging things about using Java, what's called, someone that has used a message mapping for a Java mapping, where you put in some of the in the init part of this, put in some stuff that just makes this mapping unable to migrate in a smart way. And it's those kind of rules that you can set up easily, and you can add and customize based on your specific requirement. And then in the report, you can then see where all of these pans in.
Yeah. Once this assessment report is generated, then the next step is to try understand your current integration scenario in the perspective of what is my one-to-one migration possible, and where my minor adjustments are required, and then where absolute redesign is required. So this can be an Excel probably rules that you can define yourself with the customer specific. And then once that is done, then you have segments of your migration project, which deeply technical, at the same time highly visible to the managers, so they can make a best assessment of the project budget as well as the timelines, because that is the most important thing, and what brings this value by using the Figaf, that's we are going to cover in the future slides.
So this is the report. What you'll see, we were not going into details with it. It contains all the different ICOs or receiver determinations you have in your landscape. What are all the operation mappings connected to it? What are all the different steps in it? Is the center channels with errors? All these things are disabled. If it's a center channel is disabled, no need to migrate it if you're fetching this from productive system. You can see message that has been processed. And it just gives you a whole lot of details that you would be needing for this, for getting into the details about how you're planning this, the migration, how many different adapters you have, because I think the main part is when you have an adapter, you should only be penalized for it once, like a file to SFTP conversion. It's not something that matters for all the different time. You just need to figure out, okay, we have file adapter. It takes a day to solve this problem in our infrastructure, And then we can say, okay, this is easy migratable. Obviously, when you get to something else, there may be other hurdles that you should be focusing on here. So we added this this migration overview, and actually I think it was one of the first thing we added once we had the migration tool running, because it was really difficult for you or for anyone to actually understand what the current roadmap is. What is it that we have migrated? What's not migrated? What's tested? What's in production? And this views enable you to actually see all these things directly in systems, not in some Excel file that you go in and say, hey, let's modify this, make these changes to it. And this just makes it a lot easier, and it's easier to go and access it, see all the things around your migration project that you're needing. And you can see here it's have all the classical scenarios that is actually being used here. Let's see here, there was comments. There's a question here about, let's see, can I project it? So there's a question. We have these evaluation and using traditional migration methods from SAP migration methods. How do we convince the client to go specifically for Figaf? So the challenge here is that you would, and as I see is that yeah, the more data you can have, the better. And obviously, as I said before, you can get started with the Figaf tool and this assessment for free, and thereby you get a lot more details on it. And the point is that we want is to eliminate as many black holes or unknowns in advance, and thereby be able to make this this assessment better and be able to go more in details with the scenario. Was that more, or you want anything else on it? Please let us know.
And then the remaining slides will also try to answer the remaining part of the question.
Yeah.
Because when we come to what value Figaf will bring and how it is counted for that value addition, we have also some slides in future.
But I guess so right now we have gone through the process we have gone, and we have done some, or you have hopefully run this report, and you can actually see what are the systems connected, how many operation mappings is being reused in different scenarios, because that's also something that's important when you're planning this migration. And I think that is the part that also separates this from SAP's report, the ability to see how many of these objects is actually reused, how many of them are new. And then once you get into the migration, you can explore both SAP's migration tool. We obviously recommend that you go around that. And then you also go and see, okay, but what does the Figaf tool cover in this? And some of the different things that we have is that we obviously cover different patterns, both pipeline, local processes, B2B scenarios. It's B2B is a different beast. We should probably do another session on that if that is something that's interesting, and we definitely see that a lot of customers going that direction. One of the other is this thing about custom channel mappings, and as I said before, if you have file and want to convert it to an SFTP, having one template that says this is how we set it up makes it a lot easier for you to migrate. It also reduces the number of channels or parameters you have, making it much easier to maintain in the long run. User-defined functions are converted either to Groovy scripts, or you can use SAP's function library object. This gives you some different options, and we're hearing sometimes that customers want to use the Groovy script because they give some better options, but there's obviously pro and cons with both of these, and the more options you have, the easier it is to do this. And we have much more configuration objects that you can go in and set on the migration. And an important thing is my changes can happen in days based on customer influence. So that's a lot easier if we think that this is something that solved this, we can make it in 1, 2, 3 days we have done before. And there is still, you still need to do some manual modifications, but why not give it a try? You can use it for free and see, do the side-by-side comparison. And I think that is what we recommend everybody do. Use both those tools in this pilot project, see what produces the best result, and use that. If it's not the Figaf, use SAP's tool. But if you can see that you are saving a number of hours on with the Figaf tool, it's worth considering. Thanks. We'll check it.
Testing definitely is the most critical part in the migration, because where we are not trying to re-engineer or refactor our solution, but do an as-it-is migration, or even for that matter, if you have test cases from somewhere, that is also something where you want to ensure your iFlows works in the way you expect them. So that's why the testing is more critical here. And Figaf will bring in the value that you only record it once, and then you can replay it as many number of times, and then this is giving you nearly 100% accuracy, with provided you have the test data captured in your test repository. Meaning, like, for example, if you are doing a migration project, then expect that you will have all your test variants executed in your PI/PO repository, so that you can convert them into CPI based test cases, and then you pay. And this is actually where we will for sure says that it will give you value in terms of cost saving by minimizing the dependency on the functional people or the business, because that is where the most of the time is spent for the integrations to actually do a count ping pong between two teams with issues and then resolutions. Okay, and that's why we promise to be having minimal involvement from the partners and then business expert, except for the end-to-end testing. Okay, and then we say how that is in the next slides.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the important part of this, having this testing done in a seamless way. So now I got to do the demo, and I always like to do that. It just simplifies a lot of the discussion. So obviously, if you have questions, just leave them in the chat, and we'll try to cover those also. So here we have the Figaf tool. Currently, it's just running on our local system, but obviously, we recommend that you run it in your BTP environment, so everybody have access to it. So here we have the PI to CPI migration overview, integration suite overview, and here we can see a number of scenarios that we have for this. We can see who have migrated scenarios, what's going on with this, and if we want to create a new test case, and we want to say let's migrate this, we just go select the icon, select record messages, we create a webinar, create a test suite for this. Obviously, normally you would create a test suite in the range of a business object, and generally we see, yes, you create a test suite for PI objects and one for CPI objects, and then we go in and say either we look at all messages that have been processed in path, or we select future messages depending on if our ICO locking stuff like that is set up correctly. But I just processed 2 messages earlier. I want to use those as test cases, so I fetch them, and now we have created 2 test cases. As you see, it's really easy. to set this up, and we create the test cases based on this setup. So now we have our test case, and we can now see if we go back to our migration overview, we have 47 test cases. So there's a question. So we have a client that want to migrate the 7 transform management system to SAP Cloud. Is it possible to use Figaf to migrate from TMS to Cloud Public? I'm not really sure. So we generally would look at normal ICOs that you have, and if it's a normal ICO, you can migrate it as any other object. But obviously, if it's some standard content from SAP, consider if there is some standard content that support that use case, and that obviously go to the whole migration. Do consider these reuse cases or standard content. Okay, so now we created a test case, and the next thing we want to do is we want to migrate it. So we will select this ICO. We will say, let's call this invoice webinar, and we want to say, let's use pipeline all for this. We can check the migration, and this then shows we can use this, send up the partner ID. I think we need to change this one. The center interface, just add the number here. We're using single XSLT. We can specify which queues we want to be using, and we want to deploy after migration. Here we can go in. So if it was an IDOC scenario, I'll probably exclude the inbound scenario because we do not need to create multiple IDOC channels. The only thing is for this file adapter, I created a custom channel because there were some problems and it is using something that's not standard, but it takes like 5 minutes to create a custom template, and then you can actually run the migration without any problems. Here we can see the XSLT that's been generating via the pipeline. We can change scenarios here, and here we can see all the different resources that is being used in this this migration setup. And we can see, check some of these adapters. That's a challenge, or could be a challenge. It is something you can also, when you're creating your custom templates, go in and specify these things. So just do a check again, and we select migrate. And I remember to set up deploy after migrate. Let's see. Because it's pipeline, it's a nice thing to have them all deployed after the migration, because then we simplify the processing, and I think that is true. So we can see it's created all of these different objects, the partner directory objects also in place. If we open, for instance, this one, we go directly to the integration suite. And here we can see this object. We can see the communication channel has been set up, and we can see this is using plain FTP setup, stuff like that. And it is deployed. So that's all good. And then we just go and say, hey, let's migrate the test case. We select the test case we just created here today and say migrate to CPI iFlow. We put it into a test suite, and we can then select in each of the different flows, where is it that we want to fetch this payloads that makes sense for us here. And it could obviously vary. Here we have used the Figaf migration tool to do this. If you use the SAP migration tool, you needed to go in and specify where is it that we can fetch this outgoing payload. We select save. And now we have a test suite that we can go and run. And if you run it here, it will then trigger this message into the pipeline flow, and everything would be processed smoothly, hopefully. So if we open the browser, so build in a browser, because it just simplifies the life if you have access to see what is being processed in real time. And we can see it does get some details here, socket connection, timeout, stuff like that. So we go back and we can pull the messages again. So we do have this thing about fetching the messages from the system to see what is actually being produced. And now we can see that the two of so this is a split scenario, just to make it a little more challenging, because the one-to-one just is a little simple running. But here we can see there's actually an error here. If we look into the diffs, we see, hey, this looks like a timestamp, and we can go in and ignore that and say, yes, we want to ignore all these timestamps. And suddenly we have a successful test case that shows, hey, we've migrated this, everything works as we would expect it to do. So that's the idea that we can then use all of this. So when we go to our test overview here, we can see the number of test cases. That's one. And now it's just about moving this into our production system and start running in that process. So that was, I guess, the short demo of how easy it is to migrate certain scenarios with the Figaf tool, and what it works on this. Questions, comments, put them into the chat, and also if you're some of the other platforms, we'll try to cover those also. We do have some time, I think, as we get further into this. Kishore?
Yeah. So now what you have witnessed is the realistic timelines for the migration for a demo. And then I'll try to speak on the similar lines just to answer some of the commonly asked questions. Because whenever somebody is approaching, then they're asking how much time saving I get compared to this tool or that tool, and then trying to say what cost benefit Figaf will bring in. But we want to put the question in the different perspective. Like, okay, we have this scenario. Let's take for example a one-to-one mapping, or a one-to-one scenario with a minimal manual adjustments. Then once you identify these using the tagging rules in the assessment report, let's separate them into segments where one-to-one and the other thing. So if you take the one-to-one scenario, then you can actually see the migration happening instantaneously, and then that data, whatever we are talking, is relevant for this interface, is available from your functional consultants or in your test repository. The testing, you can do the production ready interface perspective, and then also you can make it ready within a single man day. So this is actually the speed of migrating an interface which we are talking. So now I'll try to put this in that perspective, where we will not try to give you any comparison, but you experience that fastness in the Figaf tool, and then you can actually try to come with good suggestions to the different customers, or maybe you are our customer already by then, once you have already tried it. And then this one-to-one scenarios I'm talking, this is also including the pipeline based integrations with the partner directory usage, and like Daniel mentioned, split scenarios, one to many, all these possibilities. Okay, and on top of that, you will get good governance and better visibility of your integrations, and you can have a better control on your developers, what you are doing using the Figaf tool, because ultimately Figaf is just not a migration tool, it's not a just testing tool, but it is a tool to manage, because we also need to support this journey, right, which many customers has, coping with PIPO to integration suite. That's also a part of it, but Figaf is more than that. It is a tool to manage your integrations in with a good governance. And of course, we are not 100% here. So is everybody. So we have some exceptions where we'll say this is not supported because we need to bring the feature which make a good sense to the customers, keeping the SAP roadmap in perspective, because we don't want to do anything which SAP says it's going to die in future. We want to build something on that, but no, we are in line, and we are of course we are partners with SAP, and then we are in line with the roadmap, because we will have all this catch up with the product development team on the integration suite on the B2B to know there, and then they also get valuable suggestions from us. So we have some at the moment the tool has some exceptions, like it will not support custom modules. I mean, it will create you a Groovy script, but it will not give you the complete coding of what is there inside. And then the REST adapter, for example,
We are in line.
Continue.
the configuration of XSLT with Java. These are the things with the PI libraries which are not supported. We have to do some manual adjustments there. And then the most important thing when we say how much time you save or how much fast my solution is go to production, it is completely dependent on your organizational change management. If that is I mean, we don't want to bend that. At the same time, you also need to understand how fast you can transport is actually your own organizational procedures. But our promise is that the moment we are ready with the migration, the moment we are ready with the testing done, it is ready to be moved to the production. Yeah. Next slide, Daniel.
Yes, and obviously, yeah, we talked about the governance. This is all about. There's much more than just coming up with some interfaces that needs to be migrated. There's a lot more you need to get into this this journey, and here the DevOps tool is one of the things that would actually simplify a lot of this, making it easier for you to get started, having good governance in the integration suite, knowing what you're doing, what's going on in the landscape. And yeah, there's a lot of different tools in it that covers all the different aspects that you actually need. And one of the things I really enjoy, well, I specified it all, or a lot of it, so I really enjoyed is the Groovy editor. As you probably have seen, there is a lot of vibe coding and stuff like that. It's one of the things that supports this. We do have a number of ways you can get to explore and see what this migration tool is about. And Michael, if you would add the URLs to the chat, we have this trial experience, and this is like giving you a tour of what the tool is about. What is it that Figaf can do? How does it work? More in depth than just watching a video. And I think this is a great way to get more insight about, okay, so how is it that I can actually migrate this scenario? What is it that I need to set up? And here you can see this exploration. It takes 1-2 hours on a trial tenant. So use a Gmail account. It's a simple way to get to understand what the tool can do. And then you can always go in and say, yes, this looks really cool. I want to have the assessment from my own system. And then you go in, take this 4-hour training. Obviously, if you have done the exploration, then it becomes a lot easier because it's the same thing, but it's explained in a little different way with different techniques and stuff like that. That goes on. We also are opening, if you want our help to do this migration, go from the into the pilot project, go and figure out how does the migration tool works, what is this time efficiency that it brings to your landscape. And yeah, if this is interesting, write to us what it is that you're looking to explore. We'll see, create a proposal. We do have some free slots also. If you have a good use case, something that we can use in different ways, then that may also be something that's relevant. But do write, okay, so what is it that you are looking for? You have my email, so that should be fairly easy to reach out to us and say, yes, this is what you want. And then you can go and compare it with SAP's tool, with Figaf tool, go and see, okay, so what is it that you actually want? And it's fine if you say, yes, the Figaf tool is not good enough for us. We want to have or build it in a different way, but at least you have much more understanding. And also when you go in and create this RFP, you can be more concise and say, this is what I want. I want to be using this tool and technique, and I want to be transporting. I want to build all of this in this way. So this may be a good way to get some understanding of what goes on. Thank you, Prakash. If you have B2B mappings, we should just mention this briefly. TPM is a different beast and a different way of managing things. We will probably create a webinar in a short time around B2B migration. I can see Emil is on also, and it is definitely one of the areas where we can do a lot of improvement in the performance of the migration. So if you think this is relevant, be sure to check it out and go there, or once we set up that, because, and if you're doing B2B, then obviously you're also doing A2A, so it makes sense to consider all of this in one package. There is a transport webinar next week where we're just going to focus all on what you can do with regards to transport management. What are the different steps that is important for doing transports? And as you said, we need to do all these different steps for the migration. And then once we need to set up this migration or transport it, things get lost. And this is where this transport tool can help. We'll both be covering B2B and A2A or normal iFlow transport, how all of this works and why it makes a big difference for the way you're managing your integrations. Hey, and thanks for joining, Prakash and Frederico. Yes, hope you enjoyed this. What was else? There was if you have questions, put them into the Q&A section. Then we can try to cover those there. Or in the comments, and I see Michael have put in a lot of URLs for these different things that I've shared. There was a question on the partner directory and how do we manage that. And in our transport tool, you can transport partner directory content. And one of the key thing is that you can actually see that it is being linked to each other. So if you go back to the objects that we have here, where is it that we will go here? So we'll go here to our transport objects. We can see we have the partner here that has been added. We can create a new ticket in a landscape for this. And here we can say, hey, we have the partner. We can attach all the dependent objects. Oh, select the row. It's always good to do something like, so you can see here this partner directory, binary parameter. And can we attach? So normally we on this object would also see, hey, it is using these iFlows. So we would also add those to the ticket. And then we can transport all in one transaction. We can approve it. And that makes it a lot easier to deal with. questions. And obviously we can edit these XSLTs we have here with our Groovy editor. We can say, hey, if we have this payload, what does it look like? What's the result of running this XSLT either on our local system or on the BTP system, integration suite system? Thanks. Good question. Yes, and it makes it a lot easier to manage these things, and the pipeline would also be updated correctly once you migrate them to even virtual systems, and you ensure that all this consistency is out. Hopefully, we get around some of that also in the next webinar on transport. Kishore?